Binance US was always kind of a shell corporation. Everybody knew that the real company was Binance Global.
Something happens and assets get seized, or like there's no there. Bitcoin would drop below 10,000 pretty quick.
FTX was pretty bad. It seems like it would be hard to beat that.
Has Brian Armstrong always had this sentiment about Bitcoin?
I don't know that he's altruistic, but it's good. It is good for the Lightning Network that he's adopting.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, or like I'm impugning his character.
No, I'm not saying that either.
If we have another bull market with crypto, I'm telling you, inflation is not coming down. Like,
I do think your cause and effect might be a little opposite here.
The retail investor does not have money to invest in the Bitcoin ETF.
It's a lot of money, though.
No, it's a ton of money. It's a ton of money, but I think there's a difference. A lot of talk about the $500,000 Bitcoin transaction fee. And no, it is not ordinals bumping up the price. We think someone just fat fingered it and accidentally put way too much on the thing. So yeah, it came out. Everyone noticed it when it happened because we can all see the blockchain. We can see that somebody paid a $500,000 transaction fee. They paid 20 Bitcoin. I don't even know how much they were moving, but they paid 20 Bitcoin to move it.
$2,000.
They were moving $2,000. And so at first, I know there were rumors that maybe somebody was trying to
0.07 Bitcoin. There you go.
Gosh, that's so funny. So at first there were rumors that they might have been trying to clean it, if they were cooperating with the miner, if the transaction fees all get turned into one, chunk of change that goes to the miner. And so I don't know. There were at first rumors of that. And then people were thinking this happened really quickly, that people thought it was PayPal. And then very shortly after that, everyone was saying it was actually Paxos, who has worked with PayPal. They're issuing the PYUSD, the stable coin, although they've also worked with Binance and issued the BUSD stable coin. So they just they do stable coins. They're kind of their own entity. But
so it's the F2 Bitcoin mining pool that landed the opportunity, and it is hilarious. And I don't know, like, is this like, because do you think it was like something they were doing and that's just what the code required, or like what the systems talking to each other just agreed upon, or did this have to be human error? Because I'm looking at it's at Mononautical on Twitter. He has a thread about it. They said they're calling it the Fat Fingers debacle, and it says they overpaid 479,867 times. So that based on what general Bitcoin transaction fees were at that rate. And so what is it? Fat fingers, or was it just a systematic something that was out of human control?
Well, I think it was. I think it was the fact. We don't know, but if anything, you're familiar with this tweet, Matt. But supposedly, the miner who is going to be returning the fee claims that it was a mistake. That's why they're asking the miners to return it, right? So, don't know if that's true, but
I'd imagine a fat finger. I would hope that Paxos, in the amount of time they've been in crypto, have kind of rigorous technology, that it wasn't like a technological error. But yeah, I guess you never know.
Before this all came out, I did see people speculating that it was some sort of money laundering going on. But
worst case scenario.
Yeah, you
as long as everybody pays
a miner,
taxes,
as long as you have a relationship with the miner,
guess,
it's not really a big deal, right? You get your money back. So,
well, that's what I was saying. As long as they claim it on their taxes, right?
It's interesting. I know this has happened before on Ethereum, where someone's fat fingered it or whatever, and usually it's come from an exchange because they have such a large wallet. Maybe they're trying to speed it up and like get it in the next block or whatever. And it's interesting. Those times also the miners had returned the fees. This was before proof of stake, though. Now that I'm thinking, with proof of stake and then the transaction fees being burned, I don't know. Not not a good time to make that mistake on Ethereum, because then I think it's just gone. I think all the transaction fees are burned on Ethereum. So,
but but in any business, so like $500,000 mistakes do not come like that's bad. Like that's really really bad. Like even in crypto, that's just borderline malfeasance. So good luck working with the miner, and yeah.
Well, the problem is, I mean, there's really like no consequences in like the traditional like financial system. Like, oh, you make a mistake like that, you call up the other bank and you're like, let's reverse that transaction. That was a mistake.
You can't do that. No
reversals.
Crypto is totally different. So yeah, it's a whole new world for everybody.
They don't call it the Wild West for nothing. Yeah.
All right. What else?
Let's look at the Binance FUD. I mean, I've been seeing stuff about that. Obviously, Binance has been struggling a lot since the U.S. regulatory crackdown.
A lot of layoffs, a lot of people leaving.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe, really. In the wake of FTX, Binance came out looking like the shining knight, and now here they are, kind of brought to their knees once again by the SEC. So yeah, it looks like what's happening, at least over the last week, is Binance US, which was always kind of a nothing entity, a shell corporation, if you will. Literally, not entirely. Yeah. Obviously, there were some people who did some business with Binance. But
that's a great way to describe it, though.
It was mostly a shell company. Everybody knew that the real company that you were doing business with was Binance Global. There wasn't a whole lot offered, for sale on Binance US. It was just so that they could say, hey, we do have a regulated exchange for the US market, since you guys can't trade with us, right? So, and it looks like the CEO of Binance US quit, along with a number of other employees, all here in the last week. I wouldn't look at that, at face value as that big of a deal. But what does maybe look like it might be something, and it's hard to trust the validity of this, but this Adam Cochran account on Twitter is claiming that he has knowledge that he can't share with everybody, but he has knowledge of worse findings that are about to come out about Binance that he says is going to more or less bring down the whole market. So,
like FTX level bad.
FTX was pretty bad. It seems like it would be harder to beat that. But
I think if Binance, if all of Binance was pulled down, they might. I think they're probably bigger than FTX.
Oh, they're bigger than for sure. Binance is bigger than FTX.
Yeah. Binance US, no, that's not an FTX event, but
it just seems like it would be harder to see that level of, I guess, criminal neglect. But who's to say?
Yeah,
that would rug pull. Boy, if that something happens and assets get seized, or like there's some reports out there that show that there's no there, like what that would do to the market. We would be back to. I don't think Bitcoin would drop below 10,000 pretty quick if that happened, I think, but don't quote me on that. But we saw what happened when FTX happened, and it dropped like to 16K ish on the low. I think if Binance were to happen, that I don't think it would get below like not 9K, but it would definitely get four figures. I would anticipate that happening if a Binance level or a Coinbase level controversy happened. I could imagine that happening, but that could also be good for the market in terms of opening up decentralization more. I don't know.
I will say this isn't the first time Binance has had FUD. I don't know how long they've had FUD, maybe since they started, but I remember when FTX went down, there was also a lot of FUD going around, and people were pulling things off of Binance, and they had it, they were able to pull it off, and I don't know, they've weathered it before. We'll see if it's FUD or if it's actually something substantial.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't want to minimize the impact of this or Binance in general, but It has seemed weird to me just in the wake of the SEC crackdown with Binance. I mean, Binance was a huge player, and it seems like already just in the past 6 months, the mind space in the crypto, ecosphere has significantly decreased. Like I don't see people talking about Binance these days. I don't really know a lot of people who are using Binance. I mean, obviously I'm in the US, so it's kind of a different situation here. But I mean, Binance was just all over my timeline like 6 months ago, right? And like, I don't know the last time I've seen something come from CZ that's like, oh, this is like newsworthy. It seems like they're really battling it out by this SEC.
Binance gets used more, like in even BNB gets used more outside of the US in general. It's used a lot for projects that don't always have US accessibility. A lot of pancake swap opportunity with BNB. I remember early days when I was getting into crypto, BNB was the wave with pancake swap and just what you're able to do from a pump and dump standpoint with some of those just insane projects that were on pancake swap, and use your BNB, and just all of us, like, there's some huge, I hope everybody who is involved in that, is able to make hay and ride off in the sunset accordingly and keep it in Bitcoin or something. But it was it's not what it once was in 2021, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's just hard to see them coming out on the other side of this battle with the SEC and anywhere near the position they will before going into it. So,
yeah. So on the topic of exchanges, Coinbase news, they are in the process still, but they've really confirmed that they are adding Lightning Network support. I don't know how many exchanges do that, have Lightning Network support. I think I tried looking around a bit. When I was hearing about Lightning, I was like, okay, well, which exchange, can onboard me to it? And, it was hard to find. But yeah, so interesting. It big move, I could see this helping a lot of Lightning. I've been seeing, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think too, but I've been seeing a lot of people critiquing Lightning a lot more recently. Part of that is the drive chain push and the other, Bitcoin scaling solution pushes. And some of it's those Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin SV people. But I've seen a lot of, complaints against Lightning and just how hard it is to use. And Coinbase coming in, I think one of the issues is liquidity. You have to like route payments. And so I'm just imagining that if Coinbase is like a huge Lightning node, they could just make payments a lot easier for everybody in Lightning, whether or not you're using Coinbase. Like if you route through their node, I don't know. I could see them adopting it, bringing a lot more,
So if you check out
some of the problems,
if you check out the story on the block, looks like it's pretty good here. Brian Armstrong says Bitcoin is most important asset in crypto, confirms Coinbase Lightning integration. Would Brian Armstrong have said this a couple years ago? Has Brian Armstrong always had the sentiment about Bitcoin?
I know that
actually, Coinbase started as a Bitcoin exchange. Like that was their only thing.
Correct.
So among Bitcoiners, they kind of see, from what I've seen, they see Brian Armstrong as somewhat of like a wayward Bitcoiner that has abandoned orthodoxy to chase after altcoins.
That's why I was just asking, because I just want to set the record straight there. Like, is he like how? You know what I mean? We've seen a lot of people wave and ebb and flow with their positions on Bitcoin over the past couple of years, and some of them have been for it. Some of them have been like, oh man, Ethereum, pretty cool. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, Coinbase has been around. I don't know if you guys know. Is it 2011 or 13? Yeah. One of those. So they've been around the block for a while.
I wrote my column on Brian Armstrong like just a month ago, so I kind of have that fresh in my memory. But yeah, they've been around.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of controversy. I think for a while, when you looked at the kind of about section for each of the assets, I think it was either Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin SV. The way it was written, Coinbase was seeming to be more on the side of one of those, maybe Cash. But so I know there's a little bit of hate from Bitcoin, because I've heard it, because when people are like, no, Armstrong, and Coinbase have done so much for Bitcoin adoption, the Bitcoiners will usually throw back like, no, he actually dissuaded some people, right? Because he, the way I think it's updated now, but there was a time apparently that one of those was written that it seemed like it was the real
on the block was, huh?
Yeah. And even if it wasn't during the block wars, it was, I don't know how it happened. Maybe it was oversight, but.
Well, today, I will say, from what I've seen, there's obviously a lot of Bitcoiners who like this because Lightning Network, it's good. They want to see supportive Lightning Network. But there's also a lot of Bitcoiners who still don't like this because they don't want people buying Bitcoin, somewhere where there can be the potential of eye candy and they're going to buy altcoins, right? At least one tweet that I was reading, this guy was basically just enumerating like, oh yeah, my cousin, I had him buy Bitcoin on Coinbase and they saw like the price action of Ethereum, or, actually it was Shiba Inu, and it's like lost all their money on that, and it was just like this big sob story about how bad that was. And this is why we need exchanges where it's only Bitcoin. So there's not every Bitcoiner really cares or is particularly happy that Lightning Network is getting adopted on Coinbase.
I think Coinbase sees an opportunity here with the way things are right now to eat some people's lunch. We've seen them. They have an NFT marketplace. OpenSea's not doing so hot right now. They just integrated Lightning Network. Some of those other entities involved with that aren't doing so hot right now. Would Coinbase ever come out with their own like ledger wallet, or even their own like?
They have their own app. You have the
wallet. And they have their own second layer now too. So I mean,
they do. Yeah, they're big on all of them.
There's room for them to do more things here. I just wonder I wonder what's next. I mean, they're the most easy exchange to use for any beginner. Like there's gonna I anticipate there's gonna be more, but I don't know what. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys agree with me there, but there's opportunity for them right now.
I mean, they're already the biggest exchange in the U.S. Like, they do have the opportunity there. I don't know if they're trying to expand more globally. We've talked about that before, but anyway, what were you going to say, Connor?
Well, just the way, I mean, this is just my opinion, but like the way I see Brian Armstrong, like he's a businessman, like through and through. Like I wouldn't say like he has no, I'm sure he has things that he believes in. He obviously is doing a lot of work on the activism front for pro crypto policies, mm-hmm. and these lawsuits that are challenging U.S. policy, particularly in regards to Tornado Cash, and some other things that he's involved with there. But I also see him as this very business-like figure in crypto, and he's definitely looking ways that he can make money and grow his business as a tech entrepreneur. So I really don't doubt that he's looking at all the different business opportunities here, and this decision is motivated.
And let's not look at him. Let's not put him in like this altruistic.
That's what I'm saying. Like he's not. I don't see him as like a totally altruistic figure here, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, or like I'm impugning his character.
No, I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying don't like people sometimes like to get carried away with these people that make these really business savvy moves, and it's like. But when you have the capital and you have the opportunity to seize when others are pulling back, like that's just good business. It's not like it's anything different.
And I mean, just another business move. I don't know. We've talked about this before. This really all started. It was a few months ago now, where Brian Armstrong tweeted something about how crypto needs a payment network that is, very fast and very cheap and very easy to use. And then you had Jack from Twitter who responded like,
yeah, that's right.
Have you heard of Lightning? And then it was so funny. It was, I remember we talked about that before and talked about just how funny it was, because it was like all the Bitcoiners like, no, this is the perfect system. And then Coinbase is like, we need a system. And so it's good to see that now, like I'm saying, I don't know that he's altruistic, but it's good. It is good for the Lightning network that he's adopting. The more capital and liquidity that goes in there, that's my point. I think it's going to improve the user experience a lot, whether or not they use Coinbase directly. I think it'll help the whole network. But yeah, no, it is funny to think about where this began.
We'll know more. We'll know a lot more going into the end of the year, where things are going to kind of be shaken out going into 2024. So it's everything's in a interesting spot right now. And I'm not saying I'm I don't have the crystal ball for the market, but it's like anything right now. It's a lot of stuff everything's just kind of chugging along, but is there another stopping point, or what's the next breaking point? That's my question. Or because we're going into an election year, we're just going to see everything be status quo, trains come in on time, and everybody is, everybody is hunky dory. I don't know.
No. I'll tell you, election years are the most peaceful I've seen people. No, I'm kidding. Drives people wild. Anyway, sorry, Connor, what were you saying? I just
think crypto usually wants to run post an election. At least that's been my short-term experience. But
the 4-year cycle, the halving is next year as well. Not
next year,
election year.
Yeah, coincides though. But
the notorious halving.
Yeah, I would definitely say that, at least I'm the opinion that it's not going to be hunky-dory from here out. There's going to be a few more things that are going to break, and this can kind of lead into our next topic here if we want to talk about the Bitcoin ETF a little bit. But that, and then also CPI, the inflation numbers came back. I think it was just yesterday or the day before, right? Where it is higher than expected again. So the way I see it, particularly when it comes to, okay, are we going to approve like a Bitcoin ETF? Like, what do people do? People are waiting basically for this to quote unquote break or get to the point so they can throw money into Bitcoin and watch it like print money, right? People are wanting to do that. And you start to give them opportunities with that, particularly with crypto. Like, crypto is one of the biggest asset classes that people are throwing money into or want to throw money into to see it, grow. And you can't, if you're trying to beat inflation, like you can't have people doing that, right? You can't have people like betting on these risk markets, because you kind of need to see the exact reverse happening for inflation to come down. So I don't see that this Bitcoin ETF is going to get approved. I can't imagine, with them trying to fight inflation, that they're going to approve this Bitcoin ETF anytime soon.
It's going to be, I think that it's a little too risky in this current climate.
I don't know. I still, I'm a believer. I think that the fact that, BlackRock, I think Fidelity, like other big companies have applied. They've all applied. Like the SEC has to reject all of their applications, and
they have. Why can't they just enable people to be able to hold crypto in their portfolios the way it sits? Why does it have to be an ETF?
I don't know why BlackRock doesn't just sell Bitcoin. I don't know if selling
the ETF
securities versus whatever.
Well, you need an ETF, right, to invest with a retirement account. That's really what it is.
Oh, definitely retirement accounts. Yeah.
Okay.
So I forgot whether it was last week or the week before. The SEC delayed their conclusion. I don't know what to say. Whether they approve or like they keep postponing it. And I was looking into this the other day. The SEC they can delay, but only up to 240 days after the initial filing. So the first in this round of like 7 or 8 spot Bitcoin ETFs is ARK Invest from Cathie Wood. Hers the absolute deadline for them to approve or deny hers is in January, and then the rest are in March. And so we'll know in March whether or not we'll have a ETF. But I think it's going to happen. It's hard to imagine it not happening.
I just can't imagine.
Maybe it's not that hard. I'm just having a hard time imagining, like,
I'm not saying it will never get approved, but I'm saying, all right, so the first decision is coming in January. I can't imagine it can get approved in January. I don't think that's enough time to see inflation come down, and I don't think as long as inflation is up, they're going to want to improve it. I think after
I don't know that they care about inflation. Different. I suppose the ruling party might, but the SEC versus the Fed, I don't think that they seem to.
Well, you don't think?
You know what I'm saying? The Federal Reserve cares about inflation.
I don't know. I think the SEC. I think a lot of the SEC's actions can be explained by the fact that inflation went out of control, the economy was breaking, and now it's like we need to bring inflation down, and we're going after crypto companies. Why? Because we need FUD in the market more or less to bring inflation down. Like, I don't know. They weren't going after these. They weren't going after these crypto companies. They didn't go after these crypto companies until inflation was a big problem. That's when they started going after all these guys.
I don't know. I think it's two different stories. I think the SEC wants to be anti-crypto. Maybe the whole Democratic Party wants to be anti-crypto.
Why did they become anti-crypto? Like, it wasn't until summer of last year, right?
Because
the bear market,
they're all anti-crypto.
As soon as the bear market
hit, they stopped getting their donations. When they stopped getting their political donations from FTX, when he. You guys know that, right? The SBF, he funneled a large amount of that money into political donations. I think on both parties, right?
It's the best the best laundering scheme ever.
They love them, right? I mean, they can't,
Mm-hmm.
That's really when I think that's when it all started. I think after FTX went down, I think if you were to, if we were to go back, I think that's when it happened. When FTX blew up, it was shortly after that they started going really.
Well, I agree with you, but I'm saying I can't see the argument where that isn't tied to economic conditions, which is like the economy was just blowing up. It went crazy, and like we needed the bear market to like bring things down, and like they can't have inflation run. Like I don't think you can't draw like no conclusion there. If the economy was running and it was successful, I think they have much less ability to go after companies that are potentially bringing U.S. jobs and whatnot. They needed the down market to go after these guys.
I'm going to look more at it. Yeah, but I think I think they didn't go after it until things were down.
Yeah.
And then things were down after Luna, after FTX. Like they attacked in the bear market. And so crypto was already down. And they were just trying to get lower and kill it.
It was ripe for the picking.
I think you have two arguments here. You're saying they want to go after and kill it because what? Because crypto is like a privacy, not necessarily a privacy, but like a self-sovereignty thing, and they don't
like it because they're golden.
It's because they can't control it. They can't control it.
Yeah, they don't like it because they can't control it. But say again, Matt.
Because their golden boy went to jail.
You think it was just
now
because
they're out of spite? Out of spite. Now they're
So you think if FTX was still here, they wouldn't be going after all these guys? That's your theory.
Gensler would be at the next FTX conference. I don't know. I don't know. I could be wrong. I think though it. I think that soured it to a lot of them. I don't know. I think that's my point. I don't think it's. I think rates went up first. The bear market started. That helped bring down FTX because. They couldn't hide the fact that they had nothing when assets started falling. And then that blew up. And then I think SEC sees the opportunity.
I think there's a lot of different motivations involved for sure. But let me just consolidate my argument a little bit.
Sure.
Here. It's like, okay.
That's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
What happens? The Bitcoin ETF gets approved. That's going to, a lot of people are going to want to invest in Bitcoin at that point. Like that's a big bull indicator. if we have another bull market with crypto, I'm telling you, inflation is not coming down. Like, okay, like that's the exact opposite. Like, look at the last bull run with COVID. Like, everybody started throwing their money into Bitcoin and throwing their money into, and then it started printing money, and everybody had money all of a sudden. And
interest rates were zero, right? I don't know.
Inflation through the roof, though. Like, that's what sets it off when everybody starts investing in all these risk markets and they're seeing these massive returns because money's just pumping in. It's a big bubble, right? And so if everybody starts throwing money into crypto, buying Bitcoin, because the ETF gets approved, like, inflation isn't coming down. So if maybe they don't communicate, but I'm saying that if they don't communicate, the Fed is definitely looking at that and being like, man, I hope they don't approve the
retail investor ETF. Does not have money to invest in the Bitcoin ETF. The retail investor does not have their stimmy to be able to invest in anything like that right now. That's going to be an interesting element in all of this.
Yeah, I do think your cause and effect might be a little opposite here, right? I think everything ran because they were printing money. The money printing happened first. They gave, like you said, everyone got a stimmy. They dropped interest rates to practically zero, and so that means people borrow money. And the way our banking system works, that means the banks are technically printing money, and then it fueled the bull run.
Correct.
I don't know. I think that we'll disagree on that, but I think some of the cause and effect are.
But you don't think that if they approve the Bitcoin ETF, that it's going to cause at least a mini bull run? You don't think that's
it'll be a bull run, but it won't be a bubble in the same way that because it won't be people aren't going to leverage into the ETFs the way that they're going to just shift their funds that are already in their retirement accounts to the ETFs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of money though.
No, it's a ton of money. It's a ton of money, but I think there's a difference because I think it'll be instead of money being printed and created and all of it being thrown into the stock market and crypto, I think it might be a shift from money invested in the stock market. People are going to sell these other ETFs and buy the Bitcoin one.
Also, how much Bitcoin?
I don't know how much leverage people will get and just.
How much Bitcoin does a financial entity need to hold in order to keep things at fair market value too? Like, that's another component to this that I want to understand. And then there's going to be Bitcoin futures, and then there's going to be Bitcoin triple leveraged, Bitcoin 10 times leverage. There's going to be all these variations in the ETF market on it. And so it's going to be like, how are we going to see how much Bitcoin each of these entities are holding to make sure that this is accurate market information? And then, there'll be shorting and everything. It's going to add a totally different layer to this that we don't know how that's going to look.
I agree. It's definitely going to be interesting and weird, and we'll, hopefully we'll be able to look on chain to see how much each entity is holding. But I will say the odd thing is that they've been approving Bitcoin futures ETFs, but they're very much not approving Bitcoin spot ETFs.
Yeah.
So
because I think you need the spot ETF in order for futures, but I don't know. I need to talk to somebody who's a lot more smarter than I am.
Bitcoin futures ETF doesn't rely on anybody actually purchasing Bitcoin. Like, you're gambling on future price.
It's just market data. Okay.
Yeah, so they don't. If they approve a Bitcoin futures ETF, then they're not actually contributing to people buying Bitcoin. And if they don't want people using Bitcoin, then they avoid that. Cool.
Well, great debate and definitely something to talk about further in the future. So I think we'll call it quits tonight on this debate until we can get a subject matter expert who can set us straight with some of this stuff. And we hope that you all enjoyed our little news of the week episode. We will have a guest next week, and in the interim, hopefully some easy listening for you. This has been a fun episode, and as always, has been the Crypto Conversion Podcast. We hope to see you on the next one. Peace.